On the edge of the galaxy, far from the bustling center of intergalactic civilization, a small research outpost called Havoc Station stood on the surface of an uncharted planet. The station was mostly unmanned, with only a few researchers and engineers working on gathering data about the planet's unique ecosystem. A mix of alien species had been sent to study the planet's strange flora and fauna, but despite their differences, they all worked together in harmony. Among them were a handful of human specialists, scientists known for their ingenuity and surprising resilience. Life on the station had been relatively calm, albeit isolated. No immediate threats, no major conflicts, just the occasional malfunction and routine checks. But all of that changed one fateful night. It began with an unexpected warning signal. The station's main communications officer, Jari, an insectoid species from the Xarth system, picked up a faint transmission from deep space. The signal was garbled at first, but there was something about the pattern that made it impossible to ignore. After a few minutes of frantic adjustments, Jari finally decoded the message. It was a distress signal. The words were scrambled, but Jari could make out enough to understand the urgency. The message was from Admiral Kane, the leader of a nearby planetary defense fleet. Kane was a human, someone who had risen to power during the chaotic years of the War of Expansion, and who had gained a reputation for his unyielding leadership. The message contained a dire warning. "This is Admiral Kane of the Xeno Defense Fleet. We are under attack by the Dralzek Dominion. We need immediate assistance. If anyone can hear this, help us. We are outmatched, outnumbered, and out of time." Jari froze in shock. The Dralzek Dominion was a name that sent shivers through the spines of those who had ever crossed paths with them. A ruthless empire, led by a race of terrifying, war-hardened beings who had conquered countless systems across the galaxy. Their ships were massive, heavily armed, and nearly impossible to defeat. Their leader, General Thornak, was a being of nightmares, known for wiping out entire civilizations with brutal efficiency. The Xeno Defense Fleet, a formidable force in its own right, had sent the signal not because they were losing, but because they were already overwhelmed. The message was clear. If the Dominion could wipe out the Xeno Defense Fleet, no one was safe. The rest of the team gathered quickly around the communication console. Lyra, a calm and composed bioengineer from the Valter system, was the first to speak. "We can't just sit here. We need to help them." But it wasn't that simple. Turek, a veteran military strategist from the Clyer species, grunted skeptically. "We're just a small research outpost. We don't have the resources to mount a defense. If the Dominion's fleet is as powerful as we've heard, we'd be wiped out before we even knew what hit us. But we can't let them fall." Lyra insisted, her voice rising with concern. "The Dralzek can't be allowed to conquer this sector. We must respond. Maybe not directly, but we can signal for help. Surely, someone will come to their aid." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group, but deep down, they all knew the harsh reality. The galactic community had long since abandoned many remote colonies like theirs. If they sent a distress signal, the chances of receiving help were slim. The Dominion was too powerful, and everyone else in the galaxy had their hands full with their own wars and struggles. But then something strange happened. The communication console blinked once, twice, and then a new message appeared on the screen. It was brief, with just a few words. "Hold the line. Reinforcements inbound." It wasn't signed. It wasn't from anyone they recognized. There was no specific fleet name, no clear authority. But one thing was certain. This message was from humanity. The language, the tone, the sheer confidence behind it. It could only be from humans. The message was as cryptic as it was hopeful. "Who would send that?" Jari asked, his mandibles twitching in confusion. "Who could possibly know about this?" "We need to find out," Turok said firmly, his eyes narrowing with determination. "It could be the chance we've been waiting for." The researchers and engineers worked tirelessly, recalibrating the station's communication systems, enhancing the transmission signal. Whatever had been sent through had come from far beyond the known systems, and finding out who had sent it and why was their best hope of survival. As the hours passed, the tension grew. The Drelzek fleet was closing in, their massive warships hanging just outside the station's range, ready to strike. Every moment felt like a lifetime. But despite the fear, the crew couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Someone somewhere had heard their desperate cry for help. And just maybe, humanity, against all odds, was coming to their aid. But who could they really rely on? Would the humans show up in time? And what was it about their strange, unflinching confidence that made it seem like they were more than just another player in the galaxy? The answers were still unknown, but one thing was certain. The SOS had been heard, and now the game was about to change. The crew of Havoc Station sat in silence, staring at the screen where the mysterious message had appeared. "Hold the line. Reinforcements inbound." The words lingered in the air, heavy with uncertainty. The question that hung over everyone's heads was not if the reinforcements would come, but who would come to help them, and how they could possibly hold out long enough to survive. Jari, the communications officer, had been the first to decode the SOS, and now he was the one who appeared the most unsettled. Despite his calm, logical nature, there was something unsettling in his antennae that showed he wasn't as sure as he wanted to be. Who would send us help? Jari's voice broke the silence. And why would they care about us? His mandibles clicked nervously as he glanced at his fellow crew members. There are countless colonies out there. Do you think they'd risk everything for an outpost on an unknown planet? Turok, the Clier military strategist, shifted uneasily in his chair. The Clier were a race of large, heavy-bodied beings built for strength, but the mention of humanity brought an edge of worry to his voice. It's not the fact that they're helping us that's worrying. It's who they are. If it's really humans. Lyra, the bioengineer from the Valter system, cut him off. "What do you mean, Turok? We've heard stories about them. Surely, you don't believe those rumors." Turok's thick, stone-like face hardened. Humanity is unpredictable. Everyone knows it. They don't fight like other species. They don't follow the same rules of engagement, and they have a reputation that's terrifying. Lyra frowned, thinking for a moment. But that's just it, isn't it? They don't fight by the same rules, because their rules are different from ours. They find ways to win against impossible odds. She stood up from her seat, the subtle tremor in her hands betraying her own uncertainty. If they can really hold the line against the Dominion, then maybe there's still hope. But Turok wasn't convinced. He leaned forward, his deep voice serious. "Hope or not, the truth is that humanity doesn't fight to protect. It fights to win. And that means no one is safe when they're involved." The thought settled uneasily in the room. Despite the overwhelming odds and the chilling nature of the Dralzek Dominion, there was a strange comfort in knowing that someone, perhaps someone as unpredictable as humanity, was coming to help. But that comfort was tempered by a growing fear. What if the humans' approach was too extreme? What if, instead of saving them, humanity brought chaos to an already tense situation? Lyra, trying to ease the growing tension, placed a hand on Turok's massive arm. "We don't know what's coming yet, but we have to trust the message. Hold the line means they're coming to fight for us. If they can take on the Dominion, we might actually survive this. But what happens after that?" Turok grumbled, his concern more for the aftermath than the battle itself. "What do they expect from us? If humanity does defeat the Dralzek, what will they want in return?" Jerry turned back to the communications panel, tapping it as though searching for more answers. His sharp eyes flickered with uncertainty. "There's nothing more to go on. We've sent out our distress signal, and we've received a reply. But what happens next?" As if in response to his question, another message flashed on the screen, appearing just as mysteriously as the first. The text was simple, and once again, it carried the same unshakable confidence. "Reinforcements arriving in T-6 hours. Prepare for engagement." 6 hours. The crew knew that 6 hours meant they would be facing the Dominion's fleet sooner rather than later. Every second counted. The vast, menacing warships of the Dralzek would be upon them, and they had no way of knowing whether this human force was capable of anything close to the promises made. Turok stood up abruptly, his heavy footsteps echoing through the room. "We need to prepare for the worst. If humanity shows up and they're anything like the rumors say, we might need to reconsider our whole strategy." Lyra, now feeling the weight of the responsibility, gathered the team. "I know we're scared. We all are. But right now, we have to focus on holding the line. We need to secure the station, fortify our defenses, and get ready for whatever's coming." Jerry nodded, his eyes scanning the incoming data. "We'll be ready. I don't care what the rumors say. We'll do our part, and we'll make sure this station stands." But even as they prepared, they couldn't shake the lingering fear that humanity's reputation for ruthlessness wasn't just a myth. If this was really a human fleet that was coming, they might have more to fear than just the Dralzek. The galaxy had long viewed humans as unpredictable, aggressive, and even dangerous. What would this fleet bring with them? What kind of strategy would humanity employ in the face of the Dominion? The crew of Havoc Station could only guess, but one thing was clear. Whatever was about to happen, it was going to be unlike anything they'd ever experienced before. And for better or for worse, they were about to find out just how much humanity was capable of. The message had been sent, the reinforcements were coming, and now it was time to see if humanity's fearsome reputation was deserved. The hours seemed to stretch on endlessly as the crew of Havoc Station prepared for what was to come. They had no way of knowing exactly what kind of reinforcements were on their way, but the human message had brought a glimmer of hope, even if it was accompanied by uncertainty. The Dralzek Dominion had already begun to move in, their fleet of massive warships like dark shadows hovering in the sky above the station. With every passing moment, the crew braced themselves. They could feel the weight of the impending confrontation. The station, once a quiet research facility, had transformed into a fortress. Every possible system was being fortified. Weapons were primed, shields were activated, and every available drone was readied for battle. Jari, the communications officer, was glued to the console, monitoring the Dralzek fleet's movements. His antennae twitched with nerves, but he remained focused. "They're closing in fast," he said quietly, trying to keep his voice calm. "We have only a few minutes before they arrive." Turok, the Clyer strategist, had been pacing the room for hours, his large, muscular form tense with anticipation. "We won't last against their full force," he muttered, his voice low but urgent. "The Dominion is ruthless, and their ships are like nothing we've ever seen. They don't fight to win. They fight to annihilate." Lyra, the bioengineer, was organizing the team, ensuring everyone had their assignments. Though she tried to keep her composure, the stress of the situation was beginning to show. "We just need to hold on. That's all we can do until help arrives. We have to trust that humanity is coming for us." As if on cue, the station's communication console beeped again. The crew gathered around in an instant, eyes wide with expectation. A new message had arrived. It was short, but its contents were enough to send a wave of unease through everyone present. "This is Captain Alaris of the 9th Human Fleet. We are in range. Engage the Dominion at your discretion." The message was cold, almost emotionless. No promises, no assurances, just a straightforward command. The voice, however, carried an undeniable confidence. Humanity had arrived. But what would they bring with them? Before anyone could speak, the space around them seemed to ripple, and a strange, almost unnatural silence filled the station. Then it happened. From beyond the atmosphere, something massive appeared, the human fleet. At first, the crew thought it was a trick of the light. The size of the incoming ships was incomprehensible. They were much smaller than the Dominion fleet, yet there was something terrifying about their design. The ships had no ornate decorations, no elegant curves like the alien designs most had seen. Instead, they were blocky, practical, and covered in a dull gray that made them look like machines of war, not spaceships. The fleet moved in like a coordinated storm. There were no grand speeches over the communication channels, no dramatic buildup. The humans simply arrived, and within moments, they were in position, forming up in tight formation, preparing for a strike. Jerry's antennae twitched in disbelief as the human fleet approached. They're here, but they don't look like anything we've ever seen before. Turok squinted at the screen. I don't see anything special. The Dominion fleet's ships are still far more intimidating. Lyra, who had been studying the human ships more closely, furrowed her brow. There's something about them. Look at the way they're moving. There's no hesitation, no fear. They're positioning themselves with perfect precision, as if they've done this 1,000 times. And indeed, as they watched the human fleet settle into formation, it became clear that they had a plan. It wasn't a traditional military approach, the kind most galactic forces were used to. Instead, the humans' movements seemed almost chaotic, as if they were reacting to every change in the Dominion's behavior with an unpredictability that made them impossible to anticipate. Then, without warning, the human fleet launched their first strike. The smaller ships, fast and agile, darted forward, opening fire with weapons that seemed to tear through the vast emptiness of space itself. They fired energy blasts and missiles with relentless precision, each shot striking a different point on the Dominion's massive warships. The Dominion retaliated with overwhelming force, but the human fleet didn't falter. They moved like a swarm of insects, constantly shifting, never allowing the Dominion to lock onto them. The Dominion, which had once believed themselves to be the unstoppable force of the galaxy, suddenly found themselves at a disadvantage. Their ships were powerful, yes, but they were slow. They were built for brute force, not agility. They had never faced a foe like this. The human fleet seemed to anticipate every move, every action, and always managed to stay one step ahead. Jari watched in awe as the human fleet danced around the Dralzek ships, striking with precision and disappearing just as quickly. This is impossible, he murmured. They're not just fighting back. They're dismantling the Dominion's entire strategy. Turok grunted, a rare smile crossing his face. I'll admit it. They're more than just rumors. These humans are something else. The crew of Havoc Station watched as the battle raged on, a whirlwind of energy blasts, missile strikes, and rapid movements that defied everything they thought they knew about space combat. The Dominion was clearly struggling to adapt to this new, unpredictable force that had entered their territory. But the crew also knew that this was only the beginning. The Dralzek were not the type to back down easily. They would adapt, they would fight back, and they would push the humans to their limits. But as the human fleet continued to press the attack, one thing was undeniable. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. And now it was the Dralzek's turn to experience fear. The battle between the human fleet and the Dralzek Dominion had quickly escalated into something no one could have predicted. The Dominion, known for their terrifying reputation across the galaxy, were now on the defensive. Their vast warships, powerful as they were, could not keep up with the unpredictable movements of the human fleet. The Dralzek had expected an easy victory, but instead they were now struggling against an enemy they didn't understand. On Havoc Station, the crew watched in awe as the humans displayed a level of coordination and skill that seemed to defy logic. Every move they made was calculated, yet chaotic. It was as though they were fighting with a completely different set of rules, rules that the Dominion had never encountered before. Turok, the Clyer strategist, leaned forward in his chair, his eyes fixed on the screen. The way the human ships moved, darting in and out of the Dralzek's range, was unlike anything he had seen before. There was no hesitation, no pattern that the Dominion could exploit. It was almost as if the humans were anticipating their every move. How are they doing this? Lyra asked, her voice filled with wonder. She had studied combat strategies extensively, but nothing prepared her for the sight unfolding before her. The Dominion ships are far more powerful. They should be winning. Turok grunted. Power doesn't win wars. It's strategy, and the humans have something we don't understand. They're using tactics we've never seen before. It's as though they've taken the rules of engagement and thrown them out the window. Indeed, the humans weren't fighting the battle the way most galactic forces would. While the Dominion relied on brute force and heavy firepower, humanity's ships attacked in waves, using their speed and unpredictability to overwhelm their opponents. Instead of engaging in direct confrontations, the human ships would strike and retreat, hitting key targets and then disappearing before the Dominion could react. This was the hallmark of the Deathworlder doctrine, the infamous combat philosophy of humanity. It was a set of tactics built on one simple principle: adapt and overcome. Humans were notorious for their ability to turn any situation to their advantage, no matter how impossible it seemed. And in the face of the Dralzek Dominion, humanity's approach was proving to be nothing short of revolutionary. Back on Havoc Station, the crew could feel the shift in the atmosphere. The Dominion's once confident fleet was starting to falter. Their communications were becoming disjointed, their ships moving erratically as they struggled to deal with the human fleet's constant pressure. The Dominion's larger, more cumbersome warships were unable to keep up with the small, fast-moving human vessels. Jari, the communications officer, couldn't help but marvel at the skill of the humans. It's like they're everywhere at once. Every time the Dominion thinks they have a clear shot, the humans are already gone, striking from another angle. It's incredible. Turok nodded in agreement, his heavy brow furrowed in thought. They're not just fighting with weapons. They're fighting with their minds. The Dominion has never encountered anything like this. They're used to overwhelming their enemies with firepower. But the humans are making them second-guess every move they make. On the battlefield, the human fleet continued to press the attack. The smaller ships darted in and out of the fray, hitting key systems on the Dominion warships, engines, power cores, weapons arrays, with surgical precision. Each attack was swift, deliberate, and calculated. The Dominion's response was predictable: launch a counterattack, fire everything they had. But each time, the humans would be gone before the shots landed. Then, something unexpected happened. The human ships, which had been striking and retreating, suddenly closed in. They formed a tight formation around one of the largest Dralzek warships, the Xarnak, a massive vessel capable of obliterating entire fleets with its firepower. The Dominion, thinking they had the upper hand, concentrated their attacks on the human smaller vessels, thinking that they were the true threat. But they had miscalculated. The human ships didn't run this time. They didn't retreat. Instead, they began to cooperate in ways that no one thought possible. The smaller human ships, working together like a well-oiled machine, began to jam the Xarnak's targeting systems, preventing the Dralzek from locking onto their targets. Meanwhile, the larger human ships, which had seemed out of place at first, began to focus their firepower on the Xarnak's shields, slowly wearing them down. The Dominion, stunned by this new strategy, tried desperately to adjust. But it was too late. The human fleet had already adapted to their own game, and the tables were turning. The Dralzek fleet, once feared by all, was beginning to fall apart under the relentless assault of humanity's unpredictable, ruthless tactics. "This is madness," Lyra whispered, wide-eyed. "How are they doing this? It's like they're reading the Dominion's moves before they even make them." Turok didn't answer right away. Instead, he simply leaned back in his chair, a rare smile spreading across his face. This is what happens when you underestimate humans. They don't just win. They destroy the enemy's will to fight. The Dominion thought they could crush us with sheer power. But now they're beginning to realize that humans fight on an entirely different level. As the battle continued to unfold, it became clear that the human fleet wasn't just fighting to win. They were fighting to break the Dominion's spirit, to make them realize that their might meant nothing in the face of human ingenuity and tenacity. The crew of Havoc Station watched in stunned silence as the Dominion ships, once so confident, began to fall back. For the first time in the history of their empire, the Dralzek were being forced to retreat. And humanity had only just begun. The battle was now in full swing, and the momentum had shifted. The once formidable Dralzek fleet, which had seemed unstoppable just hours before, was now reeling. Their ships, massive and powerful, were now retreating under the relentless pressure of the human fleet. Each shot, each strike, was calculated to weaken them just enough to break their resolve. Back on Havoc Station, the crew watched in disbelief as the Dralzek warships began to fall back, their communications scrambled, their once impregnable formation falling apart. Turok, the Clyer strategist, leaned forward, eyes wide. This can't be real. The Dominion, they're running. Lyra, the bioengineer, shook her head in disbelief. We've never seen anything like this. The Dominion are retreating. It's like they can't handle the way the humans fight. Jari, who had been tracking the battle from the station's communication panel, spoke up, his voice filled with awe. It's not just the tactics. The humans aren't just fighting to win. They're demoralizing the Dominion. Every time the Dralzek think they have the upper hand, the humans strike back harder, faster, and more unpredictably. It's like they're pulling the strings, making the Dominion dance to their tune. Turok's jaw tightened. The Dominion may be retreating, but they'll regroup. They're not the type to give up easily. We can't let our guard down yet. Lyra looked at Turok, her voice filled with resolve. But what if this is it? What if the human fleet is already winning? The images on the screens painted a clear picture. The Dralzek fleet, once a massive, overwhelming force, was now splintering. One by one, their ships were being disabled, their weapons offline, their shields failing. The human fleet, still maintaining their unpredictable tactics, had taken control of the battlefield. The Xarnak, the largest and most powerful of the Dralzek warships, was in serious trouble. Despite its size and firepower, it was struggling to match the speed and adaptability of the human ships. For every shot it fired, the humans dodged, weaving around its defenses with ease. And then, when the Xarnak tried to retaliate, it found itself surrounded by smaller human ships, their weapons focused on the weak points in its armor. It's only a matter of time before they finish it, Jari murmured, his eyes locked on the screen. Suddenly, the communications panel beeped, interrupting the silence. The crew immediately turned to look. It was a new message from Captain Alaris, the leader of the human fleet. We've secured a significant victory. The Dominion fleet is in full retreat. We've disabled their command ship, the Xarnak. The rest of the fleet is disorganized and in chaos. We've won. The message was short, to the point, and yet it carried an air of finality that sent a chill through the crew. The battle was over. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated the Dominion. But as the crew exchanged looks of astonishment, a new realization began to sink in. The battle may have been won, but the war was far from over. The Dominion had been a powerful enemy, but they were not the only threat in the galaxy. There were still other dangers, other forces that would rise to challenge humanity's dominance. The question now was, what would humanity do next? Turok was the first to speak after a long pause. They've beaten the Dominion, but what does that mean for us? What do they want now? Lyra shook her head, still processing the events. We have no idea. But one thing's for sure. Humanity is unstoppable. They just proved it. And we're going to have to figure out where we fit into all of this. Jari turned to face his crewmates. The SOS message we received. It wasn't just about calling for help. It was a signal that humanity was ready to make a stand. They don't just defend themselves. They take action. And now, they've shown the galaxy just what they're capable of. Turok stood, towering over the group. We need to be ready. The Drelzek may have been their first target, but humanity won't stop here. They're going to keep pushing forward. And if we're going to survive in this galaxy, we need to learn how to keep up with them. The crew fell silent, each of them thinking about what the future held. They had witnessed a force unlike any they had ever imagined. The human fleet had arrived as saviors, but they had left the crew with more questions than answers. The battle was over, but the war, for the hearts and minds of the galaxy, was just beginning. And no one knew what role they would play in the new world that was about to unfold. The victory over the Drelzek was still sinking in. Havoc Station was abuzz with activity, its corridors filled with both excitement and uncertainty. The crew had witnessed the impossible. The overwhelming Dominion fleet, once feared throughout the galaxy, had been driven into retreat by a force far smaller and seemingly weaker. But they weren't just weaker, they were unpredictable. And that, it seemed, was humanity's greatest strength. The communication panel on the command deck flickered to life, a new message coming through. It was from Captain Elleris, the leader of the human fleet. The message was straightforward, but its implications were far-reaching. We've broken the Drelzek, but this is only the beginning. We need allies. If you want to survive, you need to stand with us. The galaxy is changing, and the old powers are already beginning to feel the shift. Prepare yourselves. The message was chilling in its simplicity. The human fleet had crushed the Dominion, but now they were calling for others to join their cause. No longer would the galaxy's factions remain isolated in their power struggles. The humans had made their move, and they wanted to lead. The crew gathered in the war room, their faces a mix of concern and curiosity. They had seen the humans' power firsthand, but now they had to ask themselves, what did this mean for them? Turok, the Clyer strategist, spoke first. The Dominion was just one empire. What happens when the humans turn their attention to others? What happens when they challenge the rest of the galaxy's powers? Lyra, the bioengineer, frowned. I don't know, but the humans aren't like any other species we've encountered. They're different. They don't just win, they change the game entirely. Jari, the communications officer, leaned forward. And they're asking for allies. It's clear they want more than just a fight. They want a movement. We've seen their power, now they're asking for help. What does that mean for us? The question hung in the air like a cloud. The crew had no answer. They had seen the human fleet in action, and they knew they were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting to reshape the galaxy, to bring order to a chaotic and fragmented universe. And yet, the call for allies was not without its risks. The Drelzek had been formidable, but the galaxy was filled with powers just as dangerous, if not more so. The Dominion had been defeated, but there were still factions out there that would not take kindly to humanity's rise. Turok clenched his fists. We're on the edge of something bigger than we've ever seen. We either stand with humanity and face whatever comes next, or we try to survive alone in a galaxy that's about to change forever. Lyra nodded slowly, her thoughts racing. I don't think we have a choice. Humanity's way of fighting is unlike anything we've encountered. They'll either force the galaxy to follow them, or they'll make it bend to their will. And we're already in their orbit. Jari added, his voice a little less certain. And what about the others? What if they don't want to join humanity's cause? What if they resist? Turok turned toward the viewport, his expression grim. Then the galaxy will have a reckoning. It was true. No longer would the old powers of the galaxy be able to control the fate of others. The humans, with their ability to adapt and innovate, had proven that they could disrupt the balance of power with shocking speed. The Drelzek were just the first example. What would happen when the next enemy appeared on the horizon? The question was not if humanity would continue to rise, but how the rest of the galaxy would respond. The days that followed were tense. The crew of Havoc Station continued to monitor the progress of the human fleet as they pushed further into Dominion space. News from other factions trickled in, and the whispers of human power spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Some saw humanity as a threat, others as an opportunity. The Vireth Collective, a faction known for their advanced bioengineering and knowledge of genetic manipulation, had already begun to send envoys to the human fleet. Their interest was clear. They wanted to understand what made humanity so unpredictable. The Vireth were curious, but they were also cautious. They understood the danger of underestimating a force as unique as humanity. Meanwhile, the Drakari Union, a group of highly militarized and authoritarian species, had begun to rally their forces. They were not interested in diplomacy. They had seen the destruction humanity had wrought on the Dralzek, and they wanted to ensure that humanity's rise would not come at their expense. All across the galaxy, factions began to stir. Some wanted to join humanity's cause, while others prepared for the inevitable conflict. The human fleet, for all its power, had ignited something much larger than a single battle. They had set the stage for a new era in galactic history, one where the old empires would no longer dominate, and where humanity would be the new center of power. The Havoc station crew watched these developments with growing unease. They knew that the humans were not just preparing for the next battle. They were preparing to lead. But the question was, would the galaxy follow? Or would the old powers stand in their way? The answer, it seemed, was still uncertain. But one thing was clear. Humanity was no longer a species to be ignored. The stars had never seemed so distant, so full of uncertainty. In the weeks since the humans' overwhelming victory against the Dralzek, the galaxy had been in a state of constant change. Alliances were shifting, old powers were being challenged, and the once unchallenged dominance of the ancient empires was being called into question. The spark of rebellion had been lit, and the universe was watching. On Havoc Station, the crew gathered in the briefing room, their faces tense. They had watched the rise of humanity, and now they had to make a decision: join the humans and face the unknown future, or remain neutral and hope the galaxy's turmoil would not swallow them whole. Turok, the Clyer strategist, stood near the holographic table, his fingers tracing the edges of the galaxy's map. Humanity has done what no one thought possible. But what happens next? What if they fail to unite the galaxy? What if we are left to face the consequences? Lyra, who had been studying human behavior, glanced at him. They won't fail. The humans don't know how to fail. They're too determined, too resourceful. But that doesn't mean the path ahead will be easy. There will be those who resist them, who see them as a threat. We've already seen that with the Vireth and the Drakari Union. Jari, the communications officer, turned toward the others. The question isn't whether humanity can win. The question is whether the galaxy is ready for them. Some factions will support them, but others will not. The Vireth want to understand them, but the Drakari want to destroy them. We don't know what kind of conflict we're walking into. There was a long pause as the crew exchanged looks. Turok's words hung heavy in the air. The galaxy had been a place of constant war and shifting allegiances for centuries. But now, something new was happening. Something that could change everything. Humanity's rise was undeniable. The Dralzek were already defeated, but the real test would come when the other factions had to choose: stand with humanity or stand against them. Lyra spoke up, her voice steady. We have to decide where we stand. If we choose to stand with the humans, we align ourselves with the future. If we choose to stand against them, we risk being left behind. They've already shown that they're willing to challenge the old ways, and we've seen what happens when they do. Turok nodded, a deep sense of respect in his eyes. The humans have made it clear they don't just want to survive. They want to change the entire galaxy. The old powers have ruled for too long. Humanity wants to create something new. But that new order could come with a price. There's always a cost to revolution. Jari's voice cut through the room, filled with a rare intensity. The humans have already won one battle. But this is bigger than one victory. They are creating a new order, and we have to decide if we'll be part of it. There's no turning back once we make that choice. The galaxy is watching, and our decision will shape what happens next. The station's quiet hum seemed to amplify in the silence that followed. The crew knew that this was the moment of truth. They had seen the power of humanity firsthand. They had witnessed the ingenuity, the unpredictability, and the sheer will to win that had brought humanity to the forefront. But they also knew that standing with the humans meant facing the uncertainty of what came next. At Galaxy, it was no longer divided by empires, but united under a force that would not back down. Then, Turok's voice broke the silence once again, calm but firm. We have to move forward. If we stand with the humans, we align ourselves with a future that is still unknown. But if we stand against them, we risk being swept aside. The galaxy is changing, and we can either be a part of it or be left behind. Lyra nodded. We've seen enough. We've seen the courage, the determination. We've seen that humanity doesn't back down. And we've seen what they're capable of. I say we stand with them. Jerry smiled slightly. It's not just about survival anymore. It's about changing things. If we're going to be part of this new galaxy, we need to be on the right side. The decision was made. The crew of Havoc Station would align themselves with the humans. They would face the uncertain future together. The galaxy might have been a place of endless conflict, but now, with humanity's rise, there was hope. Hope that the future could be different, that things could be better. Outside, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the choices made within the station. But the galaxy was different now. Humanity had arrived, and no one would be able to ignore them anymore. The old empires would have to decide if they would bend to humanity's will or be crushed beneath it. The universe was on the brink of something new, something big, and the crew of Havoc Station knew that whatever happened next, they would be there to witness it.